Chapter 115, Joint Combat Exercise 2-1. Magic Ability Details. Grade: Proficient Magic Student. Specialization: Elemental Magic, Common Magic, Quick Casting LV12, Mana Perception LV13. Fire Elemental Magic, Ignition LV17, Focal Explosion LV2. Wind Elemental Magic, Wind Blade LV15. Spirit Magic, Spirit Sensitivity LV13, Spirit Understanding LV13, Spirit Manifestation LV4, Sensory Sharing LV3. Spirit Slot, Lower Fire Spirit Muck. Sensitivity Stage 3, Spiritual Efficiency, Good, Unique Enchant Skills. Blessing of Fire Resilience, Temporary Fire Immunity Boost, Explosive Force, Lower Class Explosive Magic, Fire Magic Enhancement. Spirit Slot, Mid-Tier Water Spirit Leisha. Sensitivity Stage 1, Spiritual Efficiency, Average, Unique Enchant Skills. Blessing of Water Resilience, Temporary Fire Immunity Boost, Water Source Manifestation, Lower Class Water Magic Enhancement. Spirit Slot, High Tier Wind Spirit Merelda. Sensitivity Stage 1, Spiritual Efficiency, Very Poor, Unique Enchant Skills. Blessing of Storm, Periodic Damage Nullification, Ascending Air Current, Mid-Tier Wind Wind Magic Enhancement. New, Basic Star Position Magic items have been unlocked. Star Position Magic, Star Power Emanation LV1, Property Transformation LV0, Death Immunity LV0, Time Prison LV0, Short Range Spatial Movement LV0, Forced Agglomeration LV0, Illusory Manifestation LV0, Bewitchment LV0. Oh, wow tilde. The next day, I was sitting by the campfire, trying to manifest red mana while spirits carrying materials for the hut construction milled around behind me. Manifested beside the fire, Merelda swung her legs and marveled with exclamations of awe. Unlike the usual mana, the sensation within was much heavier and more challenging to maneuver. Star Position Magic was the most profound and least researched area among all magic domains. This type of magic was particularly specialized in twisting and bending the principles or laws of the world, dealing mainly with time and space. It can also be used to manipulate or bewilder the opponent's perception forcefully. Reach the realm of high-level magic, and one might even control another's mind or execute massive spatial movements. The potency of the spells was staggering to the point of questioning their legitimacy. It sounds impressive, but that comes with its own set of penalties. Firstly, star position mana efficiency isn't all that great, and with less research in this field, mastering the magic comes with many trials and errors. Moreover, it could be quite taxing on the body, I've heard. Originally, star position magic was not considered as a playable skill even in Sylvania's Failed Swordsman. It was positioned as an exclusive skill performed by enemies or named NPCs. They look complicated to use. Could you get the hang of controlling the flow of mana? Well, I'll have to give it a try. Quote, I glanced at the manuscript of Introduction to Star Position Magic, by Glucked, carefully laid by the campfire side. It was after skimming through this book that the basics of star position magic became unlocked. Quote ellipsis. Quote, I was fully aware of the hidden growth elements, yet I had never imagined a player could learn star position magic. Never could I have guessed that the method would involve discovering Gluckt's grave hidden in the western coastal areas. The coastal regions of Akan Island, particularly the small crevice in the cliffside, had little significance in the scenario and were nearly imperceptible, even up close. Nobody would have imagined such a space existing if it wasn't for Lucy. Rather than repetitive mastery, comprehending the principles themselves is critical. Magic is a discipline coexisting with theory and sensation, but star position magic feels heavily skewed towards theory. Quote, while I read the book cross-legged on a log, Lucy silently appeared and settled on my lap. Buried in my embrace, she casually manifested star position mana in her hand. Although it was a random manifestation, the volume of the swirling star position mana appeared immense. Swoosh! As Lucy clenched her fist, the scattered junk around, ranging from hunting tools and trap materials to construction supplies, began to congregate around the focal point of the mana manifestation. Forced agglomeration, one of the more difficult star position spells, can twist the flow of space to modify the opponent's position at will. Of course, a feel for manifesting star position mana itself needs repetitive mastery. Quote, "So, Lucy, you've also undergone repetitive training. I just tried it a couple of times, and it worked." Quote, "So it would seem. I tried to manifest star position magic a few more times but ended up refraining. Considering the long term, this was a magic that I must master, but it was quite tricky to make rapid progress with it. After all, star position magic remains an enigmatic domain. Just handling star position mana was enough to amaze the faculty. If lucky, I might receive more concrete instructions from a professor who took an interest." Lucy typically relies on innate talent and sensation for her magic, making it hard to learn or imitate. It might be better to receive help from a professor with extensive teaching experience. There isn't necessarily a correlation between magical talent and the ability to teach it. The thought of the late Professor Gluck made me feel a pang of regret. There might have been no one better suited to teach star position magic. I guess I'll have to start by absorbing everything in this book. Quote, "As I read Gluck's introductory text, I refocused my resolve. The book clearly demonstrated his exceptional understanding of star position magic and was quite digestible. Not to say it wasn't complex. Clenching my teeth and racking my brain, I could still manage to glean something from it. Experience had taught me that no matter how complex the manual, if you read it 10, 20 times with determination, it becomes ingrained to some extent. The same goes for technical books or legal codes. If you keep reading them over and over, you eventually come to understand them. Since this is a discipline where theory is more critical than sensation, I'll focus on reading this book after my duties are done and before sleep. One must not waste the precious asset that is star position magic." Yawn tilde. Lucy, perhaps feeling sleepy again, let out a big yawn and quietly stared at me, her eyes half open. She snuggled within my embrace, wriggling slightly to find the most comfortable position, then without any reason at all, swallowed her saliva. While I casually turned the pages of the book with one hand, I absent-mindedly stroked Lucy's head. By now, it had become a natural act. Though suddenly, for some mysterious reason, she shuddered and stealthily glanced up at my expression before abruptly pushing herself off my chest to stand up. "What's wrong?" Flushed, Lucy avoided my gaze, insisting it was nothing, and then buried herself back into my embrace, rubbing her cheek against me to find the best position. "This is difficult." Sigh. Merylda, sitting beside us, was aimlessly playing with the tips of her hair. Again, a girl has increased. It was finally the weekend. With plenty of food and no maintenance tasks, I spent the late night hours engrossed in the star position magic tome. Zix, carrying an enormous bundle, emerged in the camp and took in the sight of Merylda perusing art books beside me, thus turning visibly pale. "Oh, Zix. What brings you here, Sir Ed, if I may be so bold, even if you think it's presumptuous, may I speak freely? What's going on? Even for a male's ambition, isn't it important to think about what's manageable? Isn't this too much? Can you predict what kind of hell might unfold?" Quote ellipsis ellipsis quote. I glared at Zix with narrowed eyes, then cut off the mana powering Merylda's manifestation. Immediately, her form became translucent and began to dissipate into the wind. Hey, I was in the middle of reading something interesting. Closing square bracket. The book that Merylda had been reading rolled onto the ground, utterly abandoned. Quote ellipsis ellipsis quote. I apologize. It was a spirit. I jumped to conclusions. I sincerely apologize. It's become a habit for me to think this way. The truth is, Zix had seen Merylda before, during a duel exchange. It seems his words burst out in a moment of shock and confusion. It's understandable. The current form of Merylda was the result of minimizing mana efficiency for manifestation's sake, though burdensome for my mana management. Yet, Consistently practicing manifestation also served as training in spirit sensitivity, simultaneously improving Merylda's comprehension. Naturally, daily life would be somewhat inconvenient. It's like training by wearing sandbags as a matter of routine. Only through such enduring practices could I make full use of Merylda in actual combat. After some silence, mana burst forth from the void, and a gust of wind swept through. Whoosh! Once more, Merylda's human shape burst forth. This time it was no longer powered by my mana, but rather through Lucis, which was as limitless as a wellspring. Both Lucy and Yenica had a level of sensitivity that was entirely on a different plane compared to an ordinary person. Unless in a complete wolf form, manifesting a human shape optimized for mana efficiency was as effortless as breathing to them. Indeed, Lucy, sleeping in my arms, showed no sign of being affected. While the combat capabilities would be significantly weakened, since Merylda's primary goal was simply to read, there was no issue. If you're going to deactivate it, at least give me a warning. Closing square bracket. Merylda picked up her book, clearly annoyed, and swiftly started flipping through the pages to find where she had left off. Zix watched the scene quietly, shaking his head. My camp had become quite lively recently, making this degree of commotion hardly noteworthy. Anyway, Sared, here are some monster ecology books that I've been collecting, as well as some discard books requested by Elka. They said you can use them however you like. Quote, oh, that's great. I'll sort them out, so just throw them anywhere inside the hut. Quote, actually, they're already sorted. Though Elka might not seem like a librarian, she can't stand seeing books scattered all around. So she has arranged them all categorically. Quote, Zix brought about 6 bundles of books, apparently sorted and divided by each field. The books stored in the student library for a long time or frequently borrowed tend to wear out and damage often. In such cases, new books are ordered to replace the old ones, and the severely damaged ones are discarded. Especially if pages are missing or covers are damaged. When I asked Elka if all these could be passed on to me, Elka agreed readily. I was truly grateful. I used to be quite reluctant to spend money, instead borrowing every book from the library, so this was indeed a cause for celebration. You look like you've been through a lot carrying these books here. Quote, not at all. Even if it wasn't for the books, I would have still been lifting and running with something else. Recently, simple jogging doesn't seem like much of an exercise. Quote, Zix simply placed the pile of books inside the hut, wiping off his sweat before sitting across the campfire. Naturally, his gaze shifted to Lucy, who was asleep and snuggled in my arms. She was softly breathing with occasional rubs against her cheeks, yet she kept a firm grip on her witch hat so it wouldn't fall off. Actually, I had other things to tell you along with the delivery of the books. Quote, what's that? Have you heard that I've joined the student council? My fingers, which had been flipping through the book pages, stalled for a moment. I paused to listen to Zix. Observing their reactions, Zix Effelstein seamlessly continued the conversation, already predicting their responses. Tanya Rothtailor's cabinet seems to be receiving favorable reviews from the sophomores and juniors as well, are you not aware? I understand that you're completely absorbed with your classes, but... Yes, I've often heard that there is no significant opposition to Tanya, and that she's smoothly becoming the omnipotent student council president. Quote, it is rather awkward, but it seems that the president, no, Tanya values me quite a bit. Quote, it was inevitable. Zix Effelstein was the one who, even in a situation where everyone turned against Tanya, relied solely on his instincts and sided with her. Those who receive help in times of crisis make for reliable allies. Now that Tanya is starting to wield her power as the student council president, she is cautiously choosing whom to trust with tasks. In the scenario of Sylvania's failed swordsman, there was no mention of Zix joining the student council. Until his very exit, he remained unaffiliated, and his actions were mostly motivated by his love for his partner, Elka. That's how the story began to slowly diverge. So she instructed me. Since it's come to this, it would be better to secure a place for senior ed in the student council as well, and told me to ask for your opinion. Quote, is it fine to form a cabinet in such a haphazard way? It's not done carelessly. However, it seems the president trusts you the most, senior ed. I mean, she looks like she'd nod at anything you say. No joke. Quote, from Tanya's perspective, having some leeway in forming her cabinet means she's shaping it to her own liking. It seems my name has come up in the process. The student council members are already quite formidable. It's the first time in Sylvania's history that a freshman has become the president, but there are already plenty of upperclassmen involved. The chief secretary is the daughter of Count Curl from the junior class, and the chief executive officer is Senior Dex, the top student of the senior class. Quote, Zix shook his hands a few times, then tossed some logs into the campfire, continuing his speech. The plan is to bring over Senior Anise, who's famous as the top assistant from the junior class, and Joseph Whitepelts, who's the freshman magic department leader and a researcher at the Tog Academy, is nearly persuaded. His kin, Senior Dorothy Whitepelts from the 4th year, has already come over. If we get the Whitepelts siblings, we're looking at one of the most impressive cabinets in history. Quote, I could already guess where the selection process was heading. Anise Halen, due to tuition issues, wouldn't abandon her assistant position, therefore she would likely decline the student council offer. Joseph would not join just for the council's extra points or privileges, he's more interested in money itself. Nevertheless, I could not deny that the members assembled were more prominent than expected. And I'm unfamiliar with the notion that Tanya Rothtaylor is leading the charge at the forefront. The president is swamped with council work in her office at Obel Hall, unable to leave. So as a proxy, I came to inquire in my capacity as a council executive. Quote, you seem to be having quite a tough time, Zix. Quote, it's nothing much, really. So, are you declining then? Zix knew my answer even as he asked the question. Yes, even nowadays, I'm living my life split down to the hour. I'm busy, though not as much as before. I attend all the academy classes and cross in and out of Assistant Professor Claire's lab as a scholarship student, while also continuing my personal training. I have to plan for the training in spirit magic, demonology, and now holy magic. Taking on a student council position would be too much to handle. I suppose the president will be disappointed. Though, she knew you wouldn't be easy to recruit. Quote, by the way, do you use formal speech with Tanya? Yes, well, everyone does. It might feel strange because it's the first time we've had a freshman as president, but still, we have to acknowledge her power and dignity. Quote, as Zix casually stirred the campfire with a poker, the conversation continued lightly. In any case, your sister's authority is growing day by day. As family, you must be proud. Still, I feel rather strange. Quote, strange how? What could be strange? It just feels like someone has orchestrated this situation. It may look like the current student council president is thriving, but I have an intuition that there's a hidden backer behind all this. Zix was a boy with a natural instinct for such things. He trusted his intuition more than any situational evidence, and it was a frighteningly accurate sense. Upon hearing that, I couldn't help but think of another girl. At the Sylvania branch of Elt Trading Company, sitting in her private office, a girl manipulated her quill. Her soft gaze seemed etched into my mind. Only she knew the scope of the picture she was painting. Well, it's not like I can do anything about these hunches. Quote, Zix said dismissively and tossed the poker back into the fire. Anyway, we're in for a busy period again. According to the Academy's calendar, it's time for the joint combat practice, and this week the Holy Sovereign of the capital is visiting Sylvania. He plans to baptism a few representatives and deliver a speech. Looks like it'll be hectic. Quote, Zix's words gave clues. They more or less signified where we were in the narrative. Yet, as the scenario had started to deviate, my prior knowledge of the future was becoming increasingly inaccurate. Nevertheless, I could still speculate on what might happen next based on the main course of events that remained constant. Joint combat practice. Freshmen would spar with sophomores, and juniors with seniors. It was a traditional event and practice lesson. The main characters are sophomores, which means they'll be facing the freshmen. This combat practice is not a pairing system but a challenge one. Tylee, Clevius, and I have already received numerous challenges. I could dodge them, but I couldn't help but accept because the new juniors are too eager. Quote, I didn't know you had that side. Quote, I do adopt a firm stance when necessary. I hear the freshmen are competing amongst themselves since there's no A division, each trying to figure out who'll rise to A class first. Probably, they think beating me, a second-year A student, would be their shortcut. Quote, that's not the best approach. Zix Effelstein is one of the top students among the second-year A class in terms of power and practical sense. If it hadn't been for Lucy Mayrill, who was considered exceptional, he would have taken the top magician post, so challenging him isn't the wisest move. But audacity is also a symbol of passion, so they can't be blamed. Even Zix would get tired if he faced everyone, but that wasn't going to happen. Act 3, Scene 5. The second joint combat practice before the Lucy subjugation, the final battle of Act 3. For the protagonists who had become seniors, they would face this event one last time, and it wouldn't end pleasantly. Claude, the top of the first-year alchemy department, would ultimately lose the last duel. Swallowed up by anger and humiliated pride, he'd drink the forbidden potion, blood of the evil god, and that would be the start of another major incident. That's the history I knew. However, at this point, there were no guarantees it would unfold in the same way. By now, I've stopped expecting it to go as foreseen. While the big picture should remain the same, there will surely be other deviations. The flow has already twisted so much that only by watching can we know what's to come. Whether the future unfolds as I know, or it diverges entirely, it's out of my hands. The course of history was, bit by bit, shifting into uncharted territory. Wow, amazing. The next morning, at the crack of dawn, Yenneker hurried out of Dex Hall to Ed's camp, and she couldn't help but marvel at the neatly built hut. It was constructed right across from Ed's hut, separated by the campfire. The building, planned to take roughly 2 weeks, was instead eagerly completed by the spirits in just 1 week. Their furnishings and Yenneker's personal belongings were already inside, making it feasible for her to submit her withdrawal notice to Dex Hall. This unworthy muck, unworthy muck. Unwor, thy. Closing square bracket. However, the scene near the hut was quite pitiable. Dozens of lower spirits lay scattered on the ground, their faces carrying a near-death expression. It seemed they only realized they had worked overnight as the moist dawn air embraced them, the rising sun in the east likely hinting at their long shift. Guys, I didn't expect you to go this far, I told you to take it easy. Muck, sprawled on the ground among the other spirits, spoke in a lively tone. No, actually it was Tarkon who, no, never mind. We are now ready for spiritual transcendence. Please, enjoy your time at the camp, that's all we need. That's enough, for us. Closing square bracket. With that, the spirits one by one began to fade as their presence dissipated. It was merely their presence being dispelled, but as it happened at sunrise, it looked as if they were ascending to heaven. Yenneker, clutching her oak staff, struggled to hold back tears as she bid them farewell. Thank you, guys. Really, thank you. To an outsider, the scene would have looked like a farewell party. Once this brief exchange ended, Yenneker sat at the campfire site in the middle, clenching her fists. It was finally the weekend. She could spend the whole day in the camp. The plan was to inspect the newly finished hut and to move over more miscellaneous items, but first, she thought of cooking breakfast. She imagined Ed waking up to find her with stew prepared over the campfire and couldn't wait to see his reaction. Living together. Yenneker spoke the word out loud while perched on a dewy log, and ashamed of her own outspoken thoughts, she kicked at the dirt and swung her oak staff at the air. Technically, she hadn't fully quit yet, so she was merely spending the day with him for the weekend. Still, the present moment felt like a dream, and her face involuntarily flushed red. Then she repeatedly muttered, living together, practicing the words several times before punching the air again. Just as she thought, I should be cooking something instead of this. Single quote. Bang! Ed's hut door flung open. Was it Ed? Surprised, Yenica brushed off her skirt and turned around to find Lucy standing there, dazed and unsteady. Quote quote. The unkempt outfit, the drool stain at the corner of her mouth, and her hair sticking out in all directions. It was obvious Lucy had just woken up inside Ed's hut. While Yenica was privately relishing the idea of living together, Lucy had actually spent the night. After a brief eye contact, Lucy stood silently for a while with a vacant look, then, with her hands on her hips, she let out a faint laugh. Lucy then closed the hut door, stretched cutely, and swiftly left the camp. Alone, Yenica sat there hardened like a stone next to the fire, her mouth agape. Speechless, she remained seated in a daze. If you want to have more videos like this, then like and subscribe to my channel and have a nice day or evening or night. I will see you soon.